So, okay. So anything, did you want to add anything to that at this point, Bob, or anybody else?
No, I guess it certainly behooves us as existing board members to just voluntarily reach out, particularly if it's a new person coming in to our own district. It can help facilitate more collegial experience within that district for, in the future. I did do that with the briefly appointed most recent member, and that actually helped get some clarification as to whether this was a good fit or not. And she made a decision that it was not a good time and so on, but it might have languished for a period of time if the contact hadn't been made.
Yeah, and she did reach out to Tori and I also, so but thank you for reaching out to her, because I think that was important for her to be acknowledged.
I sent an email out to the NAMI group, alerting them that we needed a family member in South County, and gave them a little information, and also gave some information to Andrea Kraut, Mr. Rabbit's assistant.
Okay, and I'll send out a copy of it to everybody, so you know what is going out to the supervisors, but thank you for doing that, Marianne.
Of course.
I have a question. Maybe it's relevant at the moment since we're talking about family members and so on. And I see Betsy is here. It has come up. Betsy has self-identified, and I'm drawing a blank, as a family member, I believe. But right now she's not being categorized as such when we're doing kind of an inventory of board members. Betsy, would you care to make a statement as to how you would like to be acknowledged on the board, as to either general public, consumer, or family member?
I guess this would be considered a family member. I guess my only question would be, if I'm not necessarily utilizing county, or my family member is not utilizing county services, does that still merit me as a family member?
Absolutely.
Okay. Yeah, then let's do it. I would definitely consider myself a family member then.
Okay,
Thanks for clarifying.
thank you.
No, thank you.
Yes, thank you, Bob. That was a question that I had for Betsy and I kept forgetting to ask. I'm Carol.
And I did meet with David Rabbit, and part of the conversation did include the fact that we needed somebody for District 2.
Okay, I will get right on sending out that info so that he has that as well. Okay. Let's see.
Kathy,
Yes.
sorry to interrupt. Hi, good morning, Bill.
Sorry.
Is it okay? Bill has a conflict on his schedule. If he could give his report a little earlier, he gets double booked. And so if that's something that we could do for him.
That happened last time too, and we took up his whole meeting, I'm sure.
That's okay. I don't mind spending time. I just been trying to be efficient.
Okay, so if it's okay with everybody else, we'll just let Bill go. Okay, Bill, you're on.
All right. Well, yeah, I want to start with announcing that I'm going to be retiring at the end of this calendar year.
Bill.
Yeah. So big decision, difficult decision. As you can imagine, it's I think many of you have probably been through this process. It's a number of personal variables, professional variables, year plus in COVID and wildfires and everything, comes into focus about what I should be doing next. And so right around the end of the calendar year, I will finish out my term.
So that means like 2.5 months this year.
Yeah, maybe a little more than that. I mean, I talked to Tina and Amelia at the beginning of the month, so I give myself 3 months. I'm offering 3 months notice, so. I
Okay.
talked to them, I've offered a recommendation. I think they should start recruiting now, and they should consider an outside recruiter. I think that it's going to be a big couple of years with CalAIM, the peer support, billing, the chance to join the ODS waiver. And given that, I think that they should do a broad outreach, and they should try to start soon. While the official word's not out, the scuttlebutt is the new department director will start in December. And if that's accurate, if they start a recruitment now, they should be able to have candidates lined up for that director to review soon after he gets here. And the scuttlebutt is the director's a he. So.
Well, I am going to say for myself, and I think that the board would agree with me, that your presence here has really been a gift to the county.
My goodness, thank you.
Absolutely.
Right.
But I'm warning you, Bill, when you retire, you never get a day off.
I do have to figure out what I'm going to do with myself next, but I'm going to make up on some lost vacation time. So.
Okay. Well, the town
Well-
manager of Windsor is retiring at the same time. Would you two be considering swapping positions?
No self-interest there.
Yeah, maybe I need to talk a little bit more about why I'm retiring.
I do have a comment, Bill, and certainly I feel like your presence has helped smooth out the spikes that we had been going through the last at least 5 years on the board, in the county, and in daily life and so on. So you've been a calming influence, kind of pouring oil on troubled waters. So that I think one of the important things is to always appreciate what you have available to you before it has moved on. So thank you for your time here.
You will be a hard act to follow.
Would you possibly, the things you just covered as far as upcoming things that a replacement would be dealing with, could you make a bullet point list of those so that they may be under consideration as candidates may be recruited or interviewed? That would really be helpful.
Yeah, I'll be offering some summary notes on the division operations overall, and recommendations for the new department director and the new behavioral health director. As much as folks will allow me, I don't plan on being a lame duck for 3 months. While things are settled, the division is struggling still. We don't have enough services. We don't have the resources we need to do what needs to be done. And I don't think we can let up in our work to address that. So, I've spoken to the division management team. I spoke with them yesterday about this, and just reinforce that I don't want to pause and sit and wait. I have a series of recommendations I made to the department about creating contracts and positions to attempt to fill the need for service capacity, and with recommendations that they use one-time or time-limited fund balance to do that, because I think it's important to address the high levels of need that are out there and to figure out sustainability as a second step. And so I'll be pulling all those notes together for folks as I'm leaving over the next 3 months.
If I can make one other quick comment, just a reminder, as far as I'm aware, the mental health board has a role in vetting, approving, recommending, advising on the replacement of your position.
Yeah, we've lost some institutional knowledge here, so that's a good note for me to put forward.
So who, when you know who would be our contact in that process, let us know. Like the,
I think, well, it'll be the eventual director. Let me think. You know, right now the interim director is Tina Rivera. I think, as funny as this may sound, I think we're going to have to rely on Tori to keep track of things and remind folks in the administration here. So I think, yeah, I'm pausing because there's just so many moving.
right. It sounds
right
like,
now.
it sounds like a, you know, like a massive rollover, like everybody will be changing at the same time.
Well, with having a department director and the behavioral health division director, the recruitment's overlapping just creates some uncertainty and, you know, need to communicate well. So as I said, I will be putting notes together for the department, and I'll include this in those notes.
Okay, thank you for that. Carol, did you have something?
Yes, I'm devastated. Good grief. You have been a wonderful ally to the peer community. It has been a challenge to find someone who will listen. I want you to know that we felt heard, or I personally have certainly felt like we have a good connection through you to the department. And whatever you can do to help facilitate that with the next person would be most gratefully accepted. And certainly hope that, you know, once you've given yourself a breather and a holiday, that we can recruit you back into the work that needs to be done in Sonoma County with a different lens or a new perspective. I think you bring a huge amount of passion and commitment to an incredibly difficult job. So thank you.
Well, thank you, Carol. That's very kind. I would say that in Sid McCauley, Wendy Wheelwright, and Karen Salidi, you have strong peer advocates, strong advocates for peers and peer support services. And that we, with your support and urging, we have a number of projects that are ready to launch. They're not, a lot of them aren't quite finalized, but we have a lot of irons in the fire to get moving in this direction. So in my area of priorities, that, you know, increasing service capacity is I'm gonna repeat that over and over again. I think that moving the SUD services to the ODS waiver should be a big focus. CalAIM and making sure Sonoma is a strong candidate into the CalAIM transition. And then I think peer support services is a key innovation area that needs to be in the top half dozen priorities for the division moving forward.
Well,
Thank you.
I think that either for October or November, we know one of the people that we're going to be appreciating. So disappointing, Bill. Okay, do you have anything else except that announcement?
Yeah, so we just found out this week that the Crisis Care Mobile Unit Grant that we submitted in partnership with the cities has conditional approval. So that's a nice move. It's about $2.4 million that will come into the county. It will support the establishment of a mobile support team in Rohnert Park, Cotati. So they're partnering to establish a team that's in the planning stages, but I believe they're going to do that with Petaluma People Services Center. Petaluma is up and running, and they will get $1 million as well. So $1 million to Rohnert Park, Cotati, $1 million to Petaluma to expand their their SAFE program, which is currently operating. Just under $500,000 to Santa Rosa for their in-response program. So their in-response program is scheduled to begin in November. If things go well, we will be a partner with them in that project. The three recipients, so Santa Rosa, Petaluma, and Rohnert Park Cotati, have agreed to contribute a portion of their budget that combined totals about $500,000 to establish an outcome and evaluation coalition work group. So the Department of Health Services Health Policy Planning Evaluation Division will lead that. The purpose of that will be to convene a work group from all of the 4 operating programs. So there will be the county MST program as well as the 3 city programs. Convene them together and to share a data set, share a data platform, and reporting and analyses so that we are collecting information across the 4 programs about the impact of mobile crisis services, establishing lessons learned so that we are improving the programs together, and trying to use that information to leverage expansion of that Kahoot style mobile crisis program across the rest of the county. So that's a nice infusion of resources to the county, cities.
And the PUF is still scheduled December or January, something like that?
January, so it's scheduled. The construction should be completed in late December, which would allow them to do a January opening. So I will start the contract negotiations with them over the next couple of weeks to get that contract in place and get them ready to go in the new year.
Okay. Anything else? Anybody have questions that are? Okay. Oh, Carol.
Yeah, just a question about the I want to call it peer respite. It's not respite anymore. It's transitions. Is that how the house still moving forward?
Yeah, so we've been struggling, but maybe have a way to move forward on this. So the struggle has been that it's been very hard to purchase property. So we have a grant from CHAFA, which is the California Hospital Financing Something Authority. So we have a grant of $2.1 million to purchase a property to establish a transitional housing program for individuals who are involved in jail diversion. So these are individuals who have contact with the criminal justice system, largely because they're of untreated mental illness. And the courts, the DA, the public defender have agreed to enroll them in jail diversion, which is a process by which if they can get into recovery, they can move out of the criminal justice in the court process. So we have money for that property, and we've been unable to purchase that property during the pandemic. So it's been a combination of issues. And then we've had where we've identified properties, there's been reasons they wouldn't work. So we have a new idea. I don't want to share it, and because it's I don't have permission yet, but there's a property that the county owns. We may be able to buy it from the county, which would be not non-controversial, and that would allow us to get going on that program. This grant will purchase the property. The program operation is going to be, we need to get permission from the state to use our MHSA innovation money. We have outlined a peer-operated support program to operate in that housing 24/7 and offer peer support. So that is the plan for having the services in that program, along with the case management services that come with jail diversion. So I'm hoping in the next couple of weeks we'll be able to announce that we've identified a property and we're purchasing it for that program.
Yeah. So is this linked in any shape or form to the JMHCP program with Alison Loeb?
Well, I mean,
No.
it's in the same bucket of the population it serves and such, but it's a forensic program, but it doesn't have any financial or contractual connections. This is a fully Department of Health Services program.
Thank you.
Okay, any other questions for Bill? I think we're going to be able to let you go. Oh, I do have, we are going to be talking about the site visit reports and whether at one point we talked about just putting them out, like even on the website. We're going to be talking about that. I don't know that they contain anything confidential, but I'm a little concerned if so far they've been very positive reports, and I'm a little concerned if they weren't, putting them out. So I don't know, if you have opinions on that, you can either voice them or get them to us.
Yeah. So again, I'll say what I said before, that you all run the mental health board. I don't. So this is a decision for you to make. My opinion is you're a public entity, and with rare exceptions, communications you create should be generated for the public, and that you should post them. So, I mean, perhaps you would take that into consideration when you write the reports. You may frame things differently if you know they're going to be a public-facing document. But I think that if you publish reports that you hold internally, you may need to strategize around that.
Okay. Thank you. And you're free.
All right. Thank you all.
Uh-huh.
Thanks,
Bye.
Bill.
Oh, Michael, did you have? Oh, he's gone, but.
Oh, sorry. No, I was adjusting the light above my head.
Oh, okay. I thought your hand was way held high.
No, sorry.
Okay, so Bill gave his report early, Michael, and you missed the biggest announcement is that he's retiring, and so he'll be gone at the end of December.
So we have
So
we have a little bit more time with him.
we've only got a little bit more time with him, and then we'll be looking at somebody new. So that was the biggest announcement that he made. So yes, Bob.
I just kind of looking to the future, then normally we have not been, well, typically we take December off, but I'm thinking if there is consideration of a new director, that we might need to be available in December, at least give that some thought ahead of time.
Yeah. So I think it may depend on where the county is as far as recruiting and all of that. But at some point, we actually need to, just jumping ahead a little bit, we need to definitely be acknowledging Bill as our, person to be appreciated. So I don't know which month, but that is definitely got to happen. So I think I'm allergic to my house. Sorry. I seem to have more issues here than anywhere else. Not a good sign. Okay, so the mental health board, the next thing on the agenda was the potential members application process. We kind of talked about that a little bit already. Bob, do you feel like we've covered it?
I think so. If you have any main points to recap for others who haven't got the familiarity, maybe that would be useful.
Yeah, so I put together a while ago. It seemed like, well, it seemed that the Board of Supervisors did not know what the parameters were for appointing somebody to the Mental Health Board. And so they had appointed people that I had to actually, call and talk to and say, sorry, you can't be on because you are in charge of a nonprofit that is receiving funds, which couldn't happen. And so I put together just a short little description of the requirements for mental health board members, the requirement for the makeup of the board, the need to increase diversity, and the need to have, the board makeup has to be 50% family members and consumers. And so, just a real brief thing so that the supervisors that are needing to appoint somebody know who they're looking for. So I will send out to the Board of Supervisors, the ones that, probably all of them, but make sure that I send a little bit more information to the ones that are actually needing to appoint somebody. I'll send that out, and I'll also send a copy to you guys so that you can see it. And I don't know, the Brown Act rule is that anything that everybody sees needs to be visible to the public as well. It's because of the public meeting rules. So that is definitely, that's definitely something that's a no-brainer, that the public can see what the requirements are for mental health board members. But that also comes up in the discussion that we'll have in a little bit about putting out the site visit reports. So does anybody have any other questions about that? The recruitment idea. And we are supposed to have input on new members. Betsy, do you have something to say?
Yes, sorry, I'm on the meeting via my phone. Just wanted to, I don't know if I've made this announcement or not, but I did, in hearing you say about letting folks know whether they are eligible to be part of this entity because of where they're working, if they're getting funding. Just so we all are on the same page, I'm no longer with Hannah Institute. I left Hannah to go into business with my brother. So I've changed gears just in case that ever comes up in the future.
Okay, yeah, and with Betsy, I'll say that we did check because she's working with Hannah, who doesn't have any contracts with the county, but she's also on, which one was it? Community advisory something? That
Community Action Partnership?
Yes. And they do have a small contract, but it's in the drug and alcohol section. And since we're a mental health board, legal said that she was okay to be here. So we checked her out. But good to know that you're in business now, a different spot. Okay. Okay, so Carol, you have put together the next 2, October and November, with probably help with Marianne for the South County, but would you like to let us know what's happening on those 2?
Yeah, so the first one is October, and that's our special presentation on integration of peers across the continuum of care. And I do have a meeting with Erica and Wendy Wheelwright today to align that meeting with the quality assurance forums, the same topic. And the initial impetus was the SB 803 peer certification process to ensure that people had that information, that it was moving forward, that if peers did want to be involved and included and grandfathered in, what those requirements would be. The challenge really has been that this is, building the train as you're moving forward. The SB 803 passed in September. DHCS has now completed, and there is the behavioral health information notice that was released. All counties have opted to go with CalMesa. They had the option to go it alone. All counties have opted to go with CalMesa. CalMesa has now started their input information, and I will put in the chat box the link for that if anybody's have multiple opportunities now for input. The first one was last night, and I'm very pleased and proud to announce that of all the 4 people that have been appointed to that position, all 4 of them are peers themselves, either lived experience themselves or have family members. So it does include family members as peers. How does that relate to October? So I have started inviting people to, I know of Bill Carter is a yes. I can put in an email who has agreed to be there. It's a really good group of people that are willing to be on a panel. I'm continuing to do the outreach to make sure that we have a big audience, and I'm hoping that our flyer can be approved so we can generate this to be a community discussion at the wide level. Yeah, so that's October. In November, I've kind of put that on the back burner somewhat, and I hope that Marianne and I can work together on that as to who needs to be invited and to do the outreach. I have some of the people are the same people, so they know about both. It's on Rabbit's calendar. Hopefully he will be able to send, or he will send somebody from his office, from the Board of Supervisors for November for South County. And so the list hopefully is, for People's Services, the hospital, Petaluma Healthcare District, Chipper. I don't know, anyone else, please let us know who else you feel like should be invited to the South County. The Community Mental Health Center. I don't know, Marianne, can you think of anyone else that needs to be invited for South County?
I think you've given a good list, Carol.
And as part of that is, do we have somebody reporting on their mobile support, their cahoots type outreach?
I haven't done formal outreach for the November meeting yet, so that would be certainly included through Petaluma People's Services. Yeah.
Okay, perfect.
Definitely. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Okay. Okay, so there's a couple of things that are still, I think October, November are well taken care of by Carol and Mary Ann, but we do need to figure out questions like, are we going to have a December meeting with Bill's announcement, or are we going to acknowledge him at one of the other meetings? And then Michael and Vanessa had some ideas for future meetings. So what do you, let's look at the idea of who we're going to acknowledge. We didn't do anybody last month. So Bill definitely needs to be acknowledged, but
Yeah.
does anybody have ideas on other people?
Uh,
Carol?
There's more about Bill. It sounds like his reasons for leaving include several, sounds like significant recommendations. And I'm just wondering that when we do his ignition, that we give him a chunk of time to present his recommendations.
Okay. I see. Looks like Mary Frances has. Mary Frances says, Sonoma County is hosting a community panel discussion on November 4th at 6 that will focus on changes to community mental health crisis response. Both Santa Rosa Police Department's new in-response team and Petaluma's new SAFE team will be represented along with CSU, MST, and family and peer perspectives. Okay, so that brings up a whole other thing. Mary Frances, I'm addressing you as well. That is the day that and time that Melissa picked to have the MHSA annual review hosted by the Mental Health Board. So that is a something of a conflict, which I don't know. That's information. Yeah. So Mary Frances is thinking about going back to the drawing board, but you just may want to talk to Melissa Ladresh and see what work that out with her, because your presentation sounds absolutely amazing, but can't be in both places. So, okay, so I'm glad you said something though, Mary Frances, because I forgot to mention that meeting, the November 4th one, that we are hosting the MHSA annual review, and it's on November 4th. And I know that that Tori put out a question to see who was going to be able to be there, and I was one of them. There were 5 responses yes, and as many of us as can be should be there. Yes, Bob.
Just to clarify, I think the mental health board special meeting is at 5 p.m. Is that correct? Versus 6 p.m. for Mary Frances's?
Yes.
Maybe an adjustment of one or the other time-wise might facilitate both on the same day. I don't know. That's
a possibility. Mary Frances, you can work that, because ours would be 5 to 7. It's possible that yours could be 7, Mary Frances, and that would be a thought. Okay.
Could ours be at 4 to 6? Is that possible, or are we kind of set in stone with 5 o'clock?
I don't know if Melissa has put hers out, the announcement, but I think Mary Frances and Melissa can work that out. But that's a good suggestion, that we could go a little bit earlier.
Mhm.
Okay. Okay, so do you want to talk about, since we're in planning, do you want to talk about your idea, Vanessa and Michael?
Yeah. I'll kind of let Vanessa kind of go with it, because after I sent out the opinion piece, Vanessa had a really interesting idea, a really good idea, I thought, of doing a public forum with a focus on the pandemic, mental health, and resiliency. And I thought that was a really good idea. I don't know, Vanessa, if you'd like to speak on that, what you were picturing.
So no, thank you first, Michael, for sharing that opinion piece and writing that. I guess I'm wondering if like part of our work could be just providing more educational resources to the community, or because I keep hearing of all these programs right now that we're doing. And as a new member, I'm still trying to understand what our role is with all of these programs. And if we can, provide more educational resources, or like a forum where we can just communicate with or like provide some type of education to the county and to the members of our cities, to see if they understand what resilience is, and like how we can support them, and provide like how a discussion of how difficult this period has been with wildfires and the pandemic, and see if we can again just provide some educational resource and a discussion going with the community. Yeah, so that was kind of the idea. And in terms of, so I'm as a Latina, I think a lot of and as a volunteer, I volunteered at COVID-19 vaccine clinics, and there was just so much misinformation. And also there was just people who were seeking mental health, and like it was for them the first time they ever sought out that health or mental health support. And I think there's just still this lack of education on what it is and what it means to get help. And so providing resources in Spanish would also be really cool. So I don't know if as a board, that's something we could do, or work together with members in the community who are therapists that can help us in providing these educational resources for them. So these were just thoughts I had. And
yeah, and going off of that, like, I definitely think it would be wonderful if part of the board, like we do a lot of seminars focused on like educating us and stuff like that. But I feel like if we kind of could reframe ourselves to be more public forward, and like I think what I was thinking could spawn from this is just like opening a dialogue about like how to talk, like Vanessa saying, like how to talk about mental health, like how to like open up about the struggles we face during the pandemic could be like really beneficial to the public right now. Because I think a lot of people have a want to just have an open space where they can like have a dialogue about their struggles, but there's not a place really for that. And I think, it could be really good for the community if we kind of reframed ourselves in some ways to be part of that.
can I add one more thing? And I'm not sure actually what currently we're using to communicate with the community, but in terms of like if we wanted to reach maybe a younger population, having like an Instagram account where we could provide this information when we're having meetings. So like tapping into social media, because it is a huge way of like communicating, and a lot of young people get their like information from there. And Facebook for my generation and older generations could be another way. I don't know if we have these platforms established for MHB, or if it's something we can do. So that was another thought.
I definitely think that's like a really good idea. I feel like one of the biggest problems we face on the board is the fact that people may not know we exist, that we're happening every month. And like, I think we're doing a lot of really good stuff, and like, it would be really good for people to know that we're here, and, we want them to be a part of us. We want them to ask us questions. And so I think like, if I don't know how that falls with the rules and regulations, but like if we had a social media, like Vanessa was saying, I think that would be like really helpful with connecting to like she's saying, like a younger audience, like people that generally wouldn't know that we're here. So I think those are all really good ideas.
So, okay, Carol, and then I'm going to ask Tori about that. Carol?
I really like that idea. I think it's an awesome idea. I have a few resources that you might look into if it's something that we agree on that we would like to move forward with. And certainly a connection that I think would be important would be Erica Chloe. I think the Path to Hope suicide prevention series has been incredibly successful. And one of the reasons has been that they have used social media in their presentations, certainly doing the meeting on Zoom, but linking it to Facebook and a YouTube channel. As you know, Kathy, I'm sure there are some, Brown meeting requirements or kind of legal pieces that we'd have to look into to make sure that that was okay. But attendance was, 80 to 90 people, I think in some cases more than 100. So it would definitely increase, I think, our reach, our outreach. And then the other pieces that might be relevant for who might be interested is there is an existing community partner connection, and that the link person for that is also Erica Chloe, and that's attended by about 30 or 40 people, and it is an open meeting. Anyone can attend that. And it started off with COVID resources. Everything was changing so quickly. It was a way to kind of share information more from the provider perspective, but is open to any person who would like to be part of the meetings. And then Humanidad, they do the charlas or community conversations around mental health. That is, thinking, Kathy, I won't get you the lady's name, Nubia.
Oh, yeah.
Nubia Padilla, Humanidad. And then there is a new COVID outreach coalition. And I could certainly find the connector for you for that. That's more specifically around where the testing stations are, where the vaccines are available, etc. So kind of on, but I think they have also been involved in some of the conversations around the behavioral health aspects, certainly for people who've had to isolate or be quarantined. And then Buckaloo Michael Ellison has a newsletter and has a resource that's been translated into Spanish with the most up-to-date resources around mental health and COVID. So I put that all in an email and send it to Kathy, and she can send it out to everybody.
Yeah, that would be great. Maybe after like reaching out and connecting with some of these people, we can bring that back to the mental health board, and like perhaps we can do like, maybe we can create like an event that's like a hub connection of all these different groups, like where we have members of each different group represented, and just do like a big public forum on mental health and the pandemic.
And then of course the other person is Nami from Mary Frances at Nami, and she is in our attendees today.
So I'm wondering, are you, when you're talking, I'm hearing two things. I'm hearing one, using social media and other ways to let the public know that we exist. So that's one prong of what I'm hearing. And then the second is some sort of a forum, which I'm thinking would be a meeting. And I'm I'm not super clear on what the focus of the meeting would be. I don't know, would it be acknowledging the stress and trauma that everybody are feeling because of all of these things that are happening, like the COVID and I've heard on social media that the professions of like teachers, firefighters, and nurses are actually leaving because of there's so much pressure. And I know that mental health workers are feeling similar pressure. So I'm not sure exactly what you're thinking as far as the meeting. I think that there's a lot of meat there, and you kind of have to hone it down to what would you present.
Yeah.
So we have some time, unless we wanted to look at December, but we usually focus on East County issues in January. So we would be looking at sometime early in the spring probably. But I think it's definitely worth having something with somewhat of that focus, and it just needs to be kind of clarified. What is
honed
it?
down a little bit of like
Yeah,
what exactly the goal is. Yeah. I mean, this is definitely something that Vanessa and I could talk about more, to like, it's kind of early days. It was just like 1 or 2 email exchanges, like, of talking about what it could be. So we could definitely spearhead that and try and have a more focused goal of like, okay, what do we want to say? Like, what is this about? So it's definitely still early in the brainstorming phase. But I think if we had a set deadline of like early spring, like we could have something together, we could reach out to these other organizations, and we could have like a really good idea of like what exactly to do with mental health in the pandemic. Like, are we trying to say, yeah, I don't know, Vanessa, if you want to say something
And
else.
there's also, there's a lot of things that are available, but there's also a shortage of of well, social workers. There's a shortage of people who are available. I know, and more, not so much for people who have significant needs, although there's a shortage there, like the county's still looking for staff, but I know that the triage for like Kaiser or some of those bigger organizations is if you don't have serious issues, then we're not going to take our time with that because we don't have enough people to go around.
Yeah, I know Kaiser has, from what I've heard, their mental health program needs a lot of work.
It's improving, but it does, I think. I mean, that's because I'm a Kaiser member that I'm saying that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm lucky. I get my therapy through the county, so I don't have to go through Kaiser, which is nice.
Yeah, but people that have, like this, the pandemic, the everything that's been so stressful for people who for people who already have services or have significant need, and those services are there, but for just regular old people going through life who realize, this is hard and I need to talk to somebody, it's not there.
Yeah.
So that's, it's affecting everybody.
And I definitely think that like that's like a huge part of it is we have this issue in like, I don't like generalizing American healthcare, but like, I stub, you don't go to the hospital to stub your toe, but like, I've hurt myself physically, I definitely need to get checked out. But like Vanessa was saying, like people aren't just now for the first time coming and realizing that maybe they need mental health care. It's like we let ourselves go through all these stresses before we finally acknowledge, like, oh, maybe I should be in therapy, maybe I should talk to someone. And maybe that can be part of the focus of the meeting, of just like, hey, admit that this is hard, find someone to talk to, you really deserve it, you really need it.
Yeah. Carol, you had your hand up, and it looks like Betsy is wanting to speak as well.
Yeah. One of the things that's making me think of is I just did the suicide training with Melissa Ladresh, and it's basically kind of it was the QPR training, asking the question, and I'm wondering if what we're asking really is, how do we become a good neighbor or friend, or in terms of when we have that regular conversation, how are you? I'm fine. How do we get past that? Actually, I'm not fine. And how do we open the space to allow folks to have those conversations? Because I think sometimes it doesn't have to be a big deal. It can literally be a 5-minute, hello, how are you doing? Actually, I'm not, and I just need to vent. And somebody listens, and then that's the end of it. And then also the other program that I was thinking about was the Hannah Institute program that they did on mental health first aid, training people to be responders in acute times of, the fires and COVID, and when there is an emergency, and then people who don't regularly think of themselves as having a crisis are suddenly in a position of, oh my gosh, I'm just really not coping. And it might just be in that moment. And if somebody's there to help them through that moment, they'll be fine that afternoon or the next day. But so that just in time conversations, how do you do that? How do you open the door for that conversation?
I love that you mentioned that, because I feel like, there's been occasions where someone has suddenly, just personally, someone has gone into depression, or, in the past, I've had friends who have been suicidal. I wasn't close to them, but it's like, and other friends who have discussed with me, like, oh, a friend is going through cancer. Like, when we don't know how to deal with it for someone else, like how to help someone, and we're in this position, like, how do we go about it? How do we identify it? And so like you're saying, I think it'd be great if we can somehow like provide these resources of just like simply how someone can go about it and not feel that they can't do anything or are scared to do something, like a simple, like you said, or like, yeah, getting past that, just like hello, or seeing something is going on and ignoring it. Yeah, so providing these resources and education to the public, because we may not know how to go about something or identify it. So yeah, I like that you bring that up. Thank you, Carol.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And then Betsy, sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, Betsy, what did you have to say?
No, I really like the conversation where this is going. I do think that we have an opportunity, and I think I've brought this up before, it's that we have an opportunity as an entity to elevate the wonderful work that is happening throughout the county. Because I do think, to Vanessa's and Michael's point, that there is somewhat of misinformation or lack of information for folks to access what we have. And such as on October 28th, we're going to be having Lucien. Lucien is going to devote a segment to just mental health. And how many, aside from the 3,000 folks that follow Lucien and within their newsletter, I wonder who else receives notice of it. And I do know that they have a large following on Facebook, for example, but we could leverage, we could elevate, perhaps we can devote to, or we can commit to elevating what is happening within our districts. I know I'm responsible for District 1, for example, and I'm not the best at communicating. And so I could do a much more better job at bringing to this entity what is happening in District 1. And we can each maybe have that responsibility. I don't know, but I do I do think that we can inform. We can definitely be an entity to inform our community. And I definitely like the bilingual aspect of it. If we can have something in both, Spanish and English. We in the last little CN forum, we heard of different dialects and how they're not really represented in the languages that we offer. And so, I mean, there's much to discuss, but this is great that we're having it here.
Michael, and then Bob.
Yeah, I definitely think, like Betsy's saying, yeah, there's just like a bridge that's not really constructed when trying to get to the community right now. And I think, like through social media or other aspects, like if we can find a way to like let the community know, like, hey, we're here, we're doing these things. And then in that sense, like becoming more community focused and more community oriented, I think is a really good idea. And then kind of as Carol and Vanessa were saying, like, I think part of what gets in people's way about mental health is like, A, there's like a stigma, and then B, it seems really big, like, oh, I have to go and talk about mental health. Oh, I have to go and talk about therapy. But like Carol's saying, like, it can be boiled down to just like simple things of saying, having a hard time. And that doesn't need to be a huge conversation, but even just like opening up that little bit can go a really long way, for yourself, for the other person. And then I think Vanessa's point of like having, we can all do research on this or something like that. But like, just like, what do you say when someone's in a mental health crisis? Like, how do you be there for them? Like when we're not trained for that and we're just like trying to do our best for someone we care about. So yeah, I think this is a really good conversation. And I think it is pretty exciting, the idea of the board getting involved in something like this.
Sounds a lot like peer support to me.
Bob?
What I'm hearing seems to be two different topics, both of them significant. One is the great idea about utilizing various forms of social media platforms to spread the agenda and the work that the mental health board and the county is doing. I'm not sure that we are in a position, or that, for example, Tori is in a position to take on that responsibility. So from what I'm hearing, maybe one way to facilitate that would be to utilize the mental health board and the county's partners as well as contractors. And I don't know if we're doing this at this point. Tori could probably answer this. Do we do something of a informal press release or something like that to the various agencies? And if they have their own conduit to social media, they could include our messages in that and spread the word in a greater way. And they're probably much more expert at reaching their client base that way. That's one topic. Would you respond to that, Tori, as far as how we get our message out, and if we encourage the agencies to spread that to whatever we're giving them to their listeners?
Excuse me, what I usually do is post everything that's been approved on our website. And then I have an email list of, there's 4 different email lists of, one is the mental health board, and then there's 3 others that Rhonda and the other secretaries have created over the years of other agencies that we work with, as in behavioral health and the mental health board, and county agencies, and also the board of supervisors. So that's how I disseminate the information, is sending it out that way. That's how I get the information out.
Thanks.
Did that answer your question?
Yeah, thank you. I'm wondering if culling through those lists, you might be able to create an additional list that would be relevant. whether say Buckaloo may, for example, contact their client base on social media as opposed to just simply a newsletter or an email distribution. And if they're identified as such, maybe we could ask them if they would be willing periodically, as we present something to them, to shoot it out to whatever their platforms are, and just create some sort of distribution list where those agencies who may be very expert at communicating on different Instagram or Facebook or whatever might just use their already existing platforms to spread our message. That's one topic. The other topic is of the two that I've been hearing is from Michael and Vanessa's ideas as to an upcoming meeting. It actually seems to have two components as well, all of them around resources to provide for individuals who are going through their own crisis, as well as resources to provide to folks who are witnessing that in other people, and how each of them might be able to benefit. So we have two halves of that same coin.
Yeah, and it's bringing up for me, Bob, I remember that kind of a checklist group of questions that you had put together for the Windsor Healdsburg area, and resources. It was a list of resources. Are you feeling this? Well, maybe look here. Are you feeling that? Maybe look here. That was excellent. And maybe that would be something that we could work on, creating something more general. I was reminded, speaking of social media, I'm just going to show you this, and because this showed up. Let me see. There we are. So before comparing you or your life with someone else's, look at the front, what you see, and then look at the back. Behind every seemingly perfect person, there's a mess you can't see. And I just love that because it's so true. And how do you get people to, like you're saying, how do you get people to say, there's a mess going on, I need some help? And how do you help that person then? So Michael.
No, go on, you can finish your thought.
No, that was basically it.
Okay.
This whole conversation is reminding me of that picture.
I was gonna say, if we do get to a point where we have locked down the idea of doing a public forum on mental health, as we're discussing, and we're talking about how to begin outreach, definitely like going through the programs and connections that we already have. But then I know the editor for the Bohemian, and I don't know if we would be allowed to reach out to them and like make some, like if we're really behind what we're doing, if we're able to make a statement to them and be like, hey, readers of the Bohemian, we're doing this event, like come on through. Like, are we allowed to do something like that? If they'd be interested in that. You're muted.
I think that we can reach out as long as we're not. We can reach out about things we're doing.
Mm-hmm.
I would, I'd probably pass it through this board just to be sure.
Yeah, for sure.
But I think that's, I would love for you to come up with ideas about what you want to do, and then really, look at them. And I think that realistically, if you think about having something to present for maybe present to us to kind of look at, aiming at maybe the February meeting, because January is the East County meeting. And we still don't know if we're going to do a December meeting, but but I think that, you know, aiming at the February meeting will give you plenty of time to pull it together, and maybe you'll come up with 2 presentations. Because it sounds like there's more than one topic there. And
Yeah.
I'm so happy to see you 2 stepping in with all 4 feet. Very cool. Okay, so is that Vanessa?
Well, one last thing. So would it be possible to get like a list of like resources or organizations that are already in communication with us, and all the resources out there? Like if we can like get all our minds to like bring a list together, or like who we're already in communication with, just so that we know what's already out there and we don't repeat anything. Or if we do want to do this social media thing, as like Bob said, if we want them to communicate what we're doing, or if Betsy said also, maybe they could tell us what we're doing and we can be like a central group where we can like also help communicate that. So I think if we can get a list maybe, or if that's already there, I don't know if that would help, you know, like Michael also, as we think about exactly what we want to do. Yeah, is that something that we can gather or create?
Bob?
I can, I'll put in chat the link to the documents you were talking about, that I called it a self-quiz. It was for a layperson, and it was created for actually Windsor residents, but most of the resources were in Santa Rosa because there's almost nothing in Windsor mental health wise. And I can't, the one side has categories of kind of self questions. If something is like, say you're having recurring thoughts that are troubling or whatever. So they're kind of grouped by types of problematic mental health issues, and at the bottom of each group of things are some numbers of the resources, and you flip it over, and those numbers match the agencies that provide the resources specific to the whatever the problems that you might encounter. It's in Spanish. There's a Spanish version and an English version, and so it's 4 sides. I don't have any problem with anyone printing it out, and I can't vouch that absolutely everything is still current because it hasn't been revised during the COVID crisis. So some of the agencies may have either fallen by the wayside or shifted some of their focus, but it's a place to start. And possibly the self-quiz or self-assessment part might be a good thing. So anyway, I'll put that on the chat in a couple minutes, and anyone can go to it and look at themselves.
I think it's an amazing document, Bob, and perhaps Tori, you can email it out to the whole board. It's a very good document.
Of course.
Okay, thank you. So let's, now we've got 15 minutes. This is not going to be the shortest meeting on earth, but so let's go back and look at who to acknowledge in October and November. And do we really need a meeting in December? So who should we acknowledge in October? I've always had a whole bunch of thoughts, and I don't have anything specific perking around, except Bill. Betsy.
Yeah, are we acknowledging an organization or a person? I keep forgetting.
It can be either.
Okay.
I forget what we did last. I think it was Wendy.
Okay, wonderful. I know that Latino service providers have been doing a really heavy lift for the month of October, which is the mental health month, I believe. And I could be wrong. My dates are super screwed right now with all the transitions in my life. But if there's a way to recognize all the organizations, or maybe this organization who is doing a lot of work around the mental health awareness, and particularly with groups that are really hard to reach, that I think that would be really great to do.
So do you think Latino service providers as a big umbrella, or, I mean, who, is there a specific group, or is that the group, or?
I mean, if we can start with that group, I don't know if we've acknowledged them in the past, but I do think that
No, we haven't.
I feel like they should be acknowledged at one point or another. They just do a lot of boots on the ground work. And I'd really love to acknowledge their efforts if possible.
Okay. Does that sound okay? Bob?
They very frequently, with more often than not, either the director or a representative has attended the mental health board meetings with pretty constant attendance over time.
And they often, the place that I know that they have come and actually spoken is in East County. So I don't know, should we acknowledge them in October? Or go for East County? What do you think on that, Betsy? Would it be better to acknowledge them outside of their normal place where they speak? Bring more attention?
I don't know. I don't know if I can necessarily answer that question because I don't know if I understand it.
Well, do they come to all of the meetings?
They do. They come to most of the meetings, if not all. I'm using my phone, so I can't really see what the attendees are, who the attendees are right now. But I know that in the past they've attended these meetings and our monthly meetings, and are pretty well versed in what we do.
Jimena
And-
Gomez and Mary Frances are the only others besides us.
Right now?
Yeah.
Okay. Sara Isabel is specifically, it's the one that is assigned to attend these meetings. I know that because I've met with her to discuss these meetings and maybe some ideas that they've had. So they're pretty active, and they do, and they don't have that many staff, although they have expanded, and they do a lot of work. And so I just want to recognize they work really, really closely with our youth, which are always, just that group that isn't necessarily reached out to as much. There's other groups like the group that you just mentioned, Bob. I'm blanking on names right now. But there are other groups that work with our youth, but they run the promotores model where they go out and they inform, they train youth around, mental health and crisis. And then those youth go into their respective schools, communities, families to advocate about mental health, to break the stigma, to learn and understand resources, so that's, and often I feel like organizations like Center for Wellbeing, like the Latino service providers and Humanidad are not necessarily recognized as much because they are doing that boots on the ground work, and they're not able to be present as often because they're working so hard. So
So does it sound appropriate for October?
Eh,
Vanessa, did you have something to say?
So it is National Hispanic Heritage Month until October 15th. So it could be nice to also acknowledge them in that way for Latino service providers.
That's true. I had seen that and I'd forgotten about it. So October, Latino service providers. Sound okay? Okay. Excuse me, November. Shall we do Bill? For November, just in case we don't do December. Okay, and Betsy, or Vanessa or whoever. I don't have as much knowledge about Latino service providers, and I try to make the certificate kind of reflect what that organization or person is about. So maybe I can get some help with writing the certificate. Okay.
Yeah, absolutely. I think
Okay.
between Vanessa and I, or whoever else knows about it, we can chime
Perfect.
in.
Perfect. Okay. And the other big thing that we had to talk about is, should the site visit reports be made public? And Bill gave his idea that, yeah, if that probably they should be, but maybe the care needs to be taken about how they're written with the knowledge that they're being made public. So anybody have discussion on that? We were a little hesitant when somebody actually asked for one. So we need to make I think we decided before to publish them, but then they didn't get on the website, and we have to make a decision and either do it or not. Yes, Carol?
Yeah. I think that our mission is to be transparent and to share information. So as far as humanly possible, I think that we should make that happen.
Okay. Bob?
Sorry. I would tend to agree with Bill, although there's a need for transparency. Thus far, we haven't really identified any significant problematic areas. But what's our goal here? Our goal is to assess, but to try to ensure that satisfactory and hopefully superior services are being provided to the clients by these agencies. So let's say in the next few months, we do a visit and we uncover a number of areas where they could seriously need improvement. I'm not sure that it serves anyone. It's not trying to hide something, but I'm not sure that it serves someone to put a report out that would give them, give an agency a black mark if our goal is to encourage them to improve it. So I would say at least that we should, as we either write the report or have a separate summary, that we keep that in mind as to how we convey what we found, so that it is not, who knows, it could be the basis for a claim of slander. I'm not too worried about that, but giving someone a bad reputation rather than giving them an opportunity to improve might be something to keep in the back of our mind.
That speaks to the care which is taken in writing the reports. And I come down on the same side as Bill and Bob and Carol, that really we should make the reports public, but carefully worded so that we're not giving somebody a black eye or slandering them. We don't want to do that. That's not why we're doing it. However, if we do find areas that need improvement, that's it's going to come up at some point, because any program has areas of improvement. So maybe they that needs to be mutually agreed upon or separated, and the report that's public is more general. Carol?
Yeah, I think it's really important that we know why we are doing these surveys. If we are going to be doing the surveys, we will at some point have come across things that we go, this doesn't feel right, or there could be significant improvement. So I think how we deal with that in a responsible manner feels very important. Otherwise, why would we do it other than to highlight the amazing work that people are doing? We know people are working really hard, and highlighting their programs is something that we can do. But I think we need to be ready and decide ahead of time before it happens. We handle something. You know, if we go to a nursing home, it's discovered that they've had 10 COVID deaths. If the newspapers haven't got a hold of them, then they should. So, I mean, I'm not saying that we go with that as a first line response, but if we are given an in, and I think it's also a balance, because word will get around very quickly as to how we handle things. And, you know, if we want people to be open and truthful with us, we need to do it in a respectful manner so that agencies that we are reviewing are open and truthful with us. Otherwise, we might as well not do it.
It's tricky.
I'm not sure exactly how, as I'm new to this, but I just think that we should, of course, like, regardless if we're showing it to anyone or haven't been, we should always be respectful in the way we're reporting things, and not hide or not. I don't think we need to separate any of what we're reporting to the, like, if we announce this to the public or put a report to the public, I don't think any of that needs to be separate or different. I think it should all be very transparent, but of course, everything just respectful and coming from, okay, this is what happened and this is how it's going to improve, or this is the recommendations. I'm not sure if I understood well, but yeah, that's what I think. Just everything transparent, nothing separate, or separate summary or anything, because yeah.
Yeah, I definitely think that I don't think going with a public with publishing the papers publicly should change the way or affect the way that we're doing these site visits in any way. Like, it can be seen as a way of like, hey, we're doing this review, and if we find something that could use improvement, like, it is going to the public. And so, like, when we do a follow-up, we'll want to see that improvement has been made. Like, not to say that the goal of these things is putting pressure on groups, but it's sort of like, if they're working, yeah, I don't know. That's kind of the end of the thought. Is I don't think it should affect us in any way, but I think it is a good idea to be going public with that.
If I could just say, I think a lot of our purpose in visiting these agencies is to get an idea of how the money is being spent for the staff that is putting or placing people in some of these facilities. If there's some kind of egregious condition, state licensing is the body in charge of that. And we wouldn't want to get involved in that. That's not our role. But to inform the county that generally people in the care of the Sonoma County Mental Health Department are placed in facilities that that provide very good care and offer a variety of services. And we get to go and see what those services are and what the conditions are. But we're not a licensing agency. We wouldn't be issuing any sanctions. If something terrible did happen, I think the first person we'd want to tell is Bill, and have him, or whoever the new director is, of course, and have that action taken through the mental health department itself.
So, so I'm hearing that the reports should be published publicly and carefully and respectfully written. And I am totally trusting Bob Hale, who has not, he's the one that's been writing the reports with the other person that visits with him. I totally trust his judgment in writing the reports. And we just going forward have to be very clear on that the reports will be public and that they are respectfully written. Carol, and then Michael.
Yeah, I did do one of the report visits with Bob, and both of us had to sign our names to them. I'm wondering whether the report should be reviewed by the whole board before they are made public.
Well, given that Bob is now writing the reports,
I'm thinking of it more.
Always be. I think
Sorry.
that they do need to be reviewed.
I just think it's more in terms of a shared liability. You know, right now it's Bob and myself on one report, and I'm assuming it's Bob and whoever. A lot of weight on Bob. I mean, he might be completely happy with accepting that responsibility, but if we shared that amongst all of us as a shared responsibility, should there be any repercussions if an agency looks at what we've written and takes exception to what we've said? It just feels like it would maybe be a shared responsibility if it was from the whole board. I don't know, just a thought.
Michael?
Kind of going off of what Mary Ann said, and then also what Carol said, as someone who's like lived in some of these facilities for an extended period of time, like I appreciate that maybe like right now we're angling things from a perspective of like how the finances are being spent, but I would find, like, as someone who lives in the facilities, like I'd rather there were as many eyes as possible on these facilities, like there for accountability. They're talking to the, not just the staff, but the patients or consumers, as we're calling them. Like, so I do think it is kind of on us to also be going and making sure that these facilities are being run to the highest standard and providing the best possible care for people. And like, if we have comments or complaints, like, of course, it's going to be the job of the staff or the manager to say that we're wrong. But like, by bringing them to the public forum, I just believe in accountability for these facilities, especially after seeing ones that haven't been run well. Like, I don't think that we should feel bad about holding them to high standards.
Okay, so I'm thinking, Tori got kicked off. That was what the message was. Got distracted there. So I'm thinking that I'm hearing that the report should be made public. I'm hearing Carol's thought of the whole board reviewing, but the Brown Act kicker there is that if the whole board's seeing, whatever the whole board is seeing is supposed to be public. So I'm thinking that it might be more appropriate to have a review committee within the board so that that committee can look at whatever is going to be presented and review it for accuracy, for, is it worded well, etc. Instead of having the whole board have a committee. What does that sound like? Because then it wouldn't have to be, then you're not violating the Brown Act by not, putting everything out there, but you're reviewing it for appropriateness.
This is a reality check. Is it not the case that if there are more than two people on a board who are getting together and conducting business, that the Brown Act applies and that should be publicly disclosed, meetings should be announced and so forth. So that might open an entirely new can of worms if I'm recalling correctly.
I think that it is not a quorum. Not two or more, but less than a quorum. That is something to check out.
May I just request that perhaps this topic be put forward to another meeting?
Oh my gosh, the time has flown. Yes, this topic will be discussed further. It would appropriately be discussed when Bob's here anyway. So sorry for going over. I was looking at the time like 20 minutes ago and it's gone. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and adjourn, and I'm not sure how to stop the recording, but I'm going to figure that out because Tori has disappeared. Okay. So thank you everybody for being here, and thank you that was a pretty deep discussion, and we shall proceed.
Good
Thanks,
job,
everyone.
Kathy.
Thank you.
Okay, thanks.
Thank
Bye.
you, Kathy. And Kathy, I think
Bye-bye.
you just by ending the meeting, you stop the recording.
Okay, so if I leave the meeting, but if everybody leaves the meeting, then it just stops.
Yeah, if you just
Recording.
discontinue the meeting, it'll stop for everyone and it'll discontinue the recording. Because
Okay.
you're the co-host, right? Or you're now the host?
I don't know. Tori got kicked off, so I don't know if she made me a co-host or not, but we'll give it a try.
Okay.
Okay.
Thanks.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.
Bye-bye.